So Cilla, thank you very much. Cilla Freud from the Kent Garden Trust. Thank you very much indeed for making time tonight to talk to the Faversham Society about the Kent Garden Trust and about the research that you're doing in Swale. So I'd very much like to hand over to you and suggest that you and Mike take us through what you'd like to say. And then if there are questions, we'll maybe come back to that at the end, if you're happy with that.
Yes.
There is no time limit, so don't feel that you're going to get thrown out at some point. Take the time that you need, but don't feel there's any minimum or maximum.
Okay.
Yeah? Take it as you want it to go.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me tonight to talk about the Kent Gardens Trust, and also Mike O'Brien. I am heading the project for the research with Mike O'Brien, and Mike is also the co-chair of the Kent Gardens Trust. So between the two of us, I think we will outline what it's all about tonight quite clearly. But before I say anything, I haven't done a PowerPoint because all the information about Kent Gardens Trust is on its website. So if you just go to the Kent Gardens Trust, just type it in, you'll come up with our website. And under all the headings, it explains exactly what the Kent Gardens Trust is. So I'm saying this for the people who are listening in when it's recorded. You'll have time to have a look at some of the issues and some of the something of what I'm saying tonight. The Kent Gardens Trust is a registered charity. It's dedicated to protection of historic parks and gardens in Kent. There are gardens trusts all over the country. It's national. So every county has a gardens trust, and some do more than others. The Kent Gardens Trust has various programs. One of them is conservation, education, publication, and they do events. And the thing that I am involved in is research. Kent Gardens Trust research has been going on. Mike has been doing it longer than I have, since, well, put it more easily, we have researched Tunbridge Wells, Sevenoaks, Dover, and Medway. They have all commissioned the Kent Gardens Trust to do research for them. The reason why we are asked to do research by local authorities is because they want us to support them with their historical strategy. Also, we help them to get funding for some of their parks. For instance, myself and colleagues helped to get a heritage lottery funding for Kersney Abbey Gardens. We got 3.1 million by doing a report, and that report went in with the application. And if you look at Kersney Abbey Gardens today, the money has been really well spent. And I think also that the recreation ground in Faversham has been given some heritage lottery funding too. So all these things help when we write our reports to go towards improving public gardens. But we don't just do public gardens, we also report on cemeteries and private gardens as well. So the volunteers, I'm a volunteer, and the group of us, we are volunteers, research the history and development of a park or garden up to the present day and assess its significance. Once this has been researched, then it culminates in a fully referenced report. And again, these reports are all on the Kent Gardens website. So you can see how the reports are laid out if you look on the website, but they're all fully referenced, edited, and very clear for people to read. So they're used in several ways, as I have said. Material for consideration by planning officers when deciding on planning applications. To recommend to council that a park or garden should be included on a local list of heritage assets. To support applications for funding, which I've already talked about. To provide support and security to owners of historical sites, and as source material for students and other researchers. So this is what the Kent Gardens Trust is about when it comes to research. Also, we go on garden visits, and it's a good place to meet other like-minded people who are interested in gardens. I think that sums it up, Mike. Would you say? I can't see you anywhere.
Was that very well?
Yeah, is there anything you want to add generally to the...
No, I think you've covered about everything I could think of currently.
Okay, great. So I will now go on to talk about the Swale Borough Council project. In March, it was spring 2020, we were asked by Swale Borough Council if we would do some research into several public parks and gardens and a few cemeteries for them. We've had a tricky start because we couldn't, as we usually do, start off with an introduction day where we would all meet and and decide how we were going to go about it and help each other because of COVID. So, and also all the archives were shut, the museums were shut, the local authority offices were shut. So it has been a bit of a struggle. But 18 months on, we have now nearly come to the end of researching the public sites. Now, do you want me to give a list of the sites that we were allocated by Swale Borough Council? I think that would be interesting. I can't hear you, Harold.
Yes, please.
Yeah.
I sneaked earlier on, but it would be really useful to have that list, I think, Cilla, if you could do that.
Okay, so there's Bell Road Cemetery in Sittingbourne, Love Lane Cemetery in Faversham, Beachfields Park in Sheerness, Grove Park in Sittingbourne, Johnson House Gardens in Sittingbourne, King George V Playing Field in Faversham, King George V Playing Field in Sittingbourne, and the Sheerness and Sheppey Cemetery. We were going to research the recreation ground in Faversham, but when I looked into it, had a very good report written on it to go for the funding that they received. So we felt that it was not worthwhile doing that. So I don't know if any of people who are listening have anything to say about that list that we're presently researching.
Well, if I jump in, I'm slightly surprised that the Abbey Physic Garden is not on that list.
Well, that could be in our next, that is called the Abbey Physics.
The Abbey Community Physic Garden, yeah.
Okay.
And it is an extraordinary place. I mean, I'm really, well, these things happen. I'm just surprised it's not on the list. But Lucy, you may well have other ideas of things which are places.
No, that obviously was the first one that sprang to my mind. In Faversham, do they have to be existing parks, or can they be ancient parks? I suppose
it could be. Yeah, sorry. Carry on.
No, there is an old garden that would have had a lot of, well, there's the Gunpowder Works in Faversham, but I don't know whether that counts now, because there are several Gunpowder Works. There's this Gunpowder Works in the centre of Faversham, but there is still a waterway going through, but a lot of it has been built over. In fact, there's a lot that's been built over in Faversham in general. So
Right.
I don't quite know exactly how it works, whether it has to be an existing garden or whether you can research areas that have subsequently been built over.
I think we can research areas that have been built over, and I think that we find that quite interesting to do, don't we, Mike?
Yeah.
Well, and you may well find that there's the Gunpowder Works there are several Gunpowder Works in Faversham of sort of varying different ages, and there's obviously the Gunpowder Works at Orr, which go right from the Swale estuary right through to Bising Wood, which may have already had it has actually become a park, but it is actually rather interesting with lots of old buildings in. It has an industrial background to it.
Okay, so that's all online. I can look that
Yeah,
up.
it's
Gunpowder Works.
It's the Orr Gunpowder.
How do you spell Orr?
OARE.
OARE. Yeah.
Okay.
Technically, it's now a country park. But Lucy, the other one that occurs to me is the Stonebridge Pond, which is now
that's
allotments. But
yes,
I don't know whether allotments count as parks or not. It's a public space, and there's a duck pond and thing.
But it might have been something before it was an allotment.
Well, it was a Gunpowder
Works.
That was Gunpowder Works.
But the other place, which is right adjacent to that, is what is now Bob Geldof's garden in the
Davington Priory.
And that, I think, was probably a very significant garden.
Doddington Priory.
Doddington Parish Church. And next to it is the Doddington Priory.
Is that the same as Donington?
No, Doddington, D-O-D-D.
Davington, yes.
Davington
Priory.
Sorry,
yeah,
that's
now Davington Priory, that's where Bob Geldof used to live,
yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah, sorry for that. That was my mistake.
That is already in the 1990s. There was a Kent Gardens Compendium published, and the volunteers, one of the works of the research volunteers for the Kent Gardens Trust has been to go through this compendium, and they've been through it in Tunbridge Wells and Sevenoaks and look at what was listed and to revise their reports and edit the reports. So would the Davington Priory be worth another visit?
I think so, probably.
It's a private garden, so not many people get to look at it. But I would imagine so. There is one other area that's interesting in Faversham, which is St Anne's, which which is now almost entirely being built over, but there is quite a lot written online about it was a private house, I think owned by possibly one of the Gunpowder Works owners. But he did create pleasure gardens out of it, and there were lots of waterways going through. It now is mainly modern housing, but there are areas of it which are quite unusual. But anyway, that's just another thought.
Yeah, I mean, when we start off, we're usually given a boundary so that we know the exact area that we're going to research. So we'd have to look at how, with some of these, how we could make the boundaries, or how the actual area we would be doing, so you're not going on and on and on.
No, of course not. I mean, as far as physical boundaries are concerned, Davington Priory boundaries abut the St Anne's. They were adjacent gardens, as far as I know.
And has the Davington Priory got a nice garden to it? I was looking it up online. I couldn't really see whether there was...
It's private. It belongs to Bob, so unless you happen to go there.
But one thing that's worth adding to that is that he did put in planning permission to create a pond. And the pond was to be modelled on Monet's Paris one. So I don't know exactly what's going on. We saw that planning application because it came through to the Faversham Society. But I suspect he has looked after that garden, and he may have done some very interesting things with it.
Okay, I mean, one of the things we do before we do any research on private gardens is to get the owner's consent.
Of course.
That we can go in there, and also they have to consent on a data basis that their garden can go on the website. So before we can do anything with private gardens, we have to get a letter back saying that they consent. So that would be the first step towards it if we were going to do Davington Priory. So yeah, so we're getting a bit of a list here. The other thing I'd like to say is that even modern gardens can be significant.
Well, there's Doddington Place. Do you know Doddington Place? Doddington.
I know Doddington Place. That was quite well researched, I think, but I haven't read it up in the Kent Gardens Compendium. Have you, Mike? Do you know how much?
No, there wouldn't be any write-up in the compendium at all.
Yeah.
It's just the compendium is just a list of locations and also maps of the area.
Okay.
Well, the person to contact is Amelia Oldfield, who will be able to tell you everything about that garden, because you know Amelia, she will know everything about it. But it's a very interesting garden. It's a Victorian garden originally.
Yes.
There are two others that occurred to me. I don't know, Cilla, whether they qualify or whether you'd be interested, but there's Compton Ash, which is a nursery garden with a lot of extremely rare plants, looked after by Tim Ingram. And of course, further down the road, there's Lords, where they've done a lot of work on the gardens. It's very beautiful.
What's the name of that again?
Lords.
Lords.
How do you spell that?
As in Lord, L-O-R-D-S.
As in Lord.
Lords.
Like Lords, yeah.
It's in the National Garden Scheme, so it's open as part of that.
Okay.
And I go every year.
Those are both private, are they?
Well, the Tim's one, Compton Ash, is commercial, semi-commercial. He grows rare, I forget what species he concentrates on, but he has a big collection. They're both in the National Garden Scheme.
Okay. Yeah, because what also, I mean, this is for the sake of the recording and people listening to the recording, we don't necessarily need historic gardens because modern gardens are going to be historic in the future. Yeah. So in 50 years' time, it'd be really important. Some of the gardens that were designed in the 1960s and onwards will be very significant because a lot of the garden designers have become very famous, and their designs will be very important when we're looking at historically in the future when we're no longer around. So if anybody's listening in on this recording and they have a garden or know of a garden, doesn't matter if it's really small, that has been designed by somebody who's fairly significant, that would also be really, really important too. And fresh for the list. Hello, Simon.
Hi. I mean, I've mentioned Lorendon Gardens Park, which is now a nature reserve or something, but it obviously was a garden park of some distinction. It's sort of half open to the public, but is mostly adjacent to the school now. Obviously have sensitive questions about access, but I think it should be included in the list.
Okay, how do you spell that again?
Lorenden.
Okay. Lorendon Garden.
Yes.
Yeah.
There is, it's now in two parts, I think. There's the Lorendon Park Trust, which owns the planning gain area, which is extensively, there's a lot of specimen trees there actually, and the remains of what was a lake. And then up at the top, there's the other part of the garden. So it's, I think they're in two different ownerships, one with the school and the other with a community trust.
Is the school private or is that just a normal?
It's a public school. It's a prep school.
Private school.
But they are actually quite open to the public. They've done a lot of historical exhibitions there and things. They are quite open. They might be quite keen for their own reasons, actually. And certainly the Park Trust would be very keen, I think.
Yeah. Well, we did Sutton Valence. That was a school, wasn't it?
Yes, it would be. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they were very, I mean, you just have to be a bit careful when you go
Sure.
to visit it and things like that. They have to be a bit careful about.
Yeah, because we also researched Cobham when school wasn't there, basically.
Yeah. So we're getting a few ideas here, which is fantastic, because we need to get going on the next, because I want to get the list that we've already got. I want to finish that research by Christmas and start on the new research in the new year. And the other side, the other issue I wanted to talk about was researchers. If anybody who's listening to this recording or even here tonight is interested in joining our research team, we would really welcome you, especially if you're already doing some research or have been, you know, and are interested in gardens. It would be really good to have some local people doing the research with us, because we don't want to come in and tread on people's toes. We want to be working with everybody in the community to get these reports out. So,
Well,
Lucy, do you want to come in and talk about your team?
The team, yes.
No, it's Lucy's got a small team.
Oh, team. Okay, Lucy. Sorry.
Well, I run Faversham Open Gardens. Have done. Well, sadly, we haven't had Faversham Open Gardens for 2 years, which is very sad. But I've run it prior to that for 5 years, so 7 years altogether. And where we have 30 to 35 gardens open in Faversham on the last Sunday of June. Yeah. And there are a team of 8 of us, I think, who run it. And so we, I suppose by now, people kind of know us as, you know, the sort of the people who run the Open Gardens scheme. We're all reasonably knowledgeable about gardens. And I'm sure that between us, we would be quite happy either as a team or as individuals to help you out in some way.
Great.
You know, as I say, either with the Faversham Open Gardens name behind us or as individuals, depending on how people want to go. I would be interested personally in helping.
Yes.
With research. I do know, you know, obviously I know quite a lot about the sort of the private gardens and the public gardens in now, just by experience.
Yeah.
So, you know, you can put me down on a list.
Okay, thank you.
And I'll talk to the rest of the team.
Yeah, and we've got a few gardens down here, and they can choose what gardens they want to research as well. I mean, it doesn't have to be, if the garden is significant, we're happy to take it on, aren't we, Mike?
Yes.
It doesn't have to be anything that we know about, or it's just really good to get some fresh gardens.
Lucy, do you think you could be willing to share perhaps the last 2 years Open Gardens handbooks? Because it may be that if Cilla and Mike looked through that, they'd see something that they just thought was sufficiently different and interesting that it was worth including. I mean, I think of that rather nice, very new garden at the top of the Mall, which is a very difficult space, but it's been turned into a very interesting garden in my view.
Yes. And Jane is a garden designer herself.
Yeah, so I just think some of those are worth you having a look at, Cilla, to see if they are of interest to you. I think that one's a particularly interesting example of doing something really quite remarkable with a incredibly difficult space.
Yeah.
We also would have to involve Swale as well.
Of course.
Get their approval.
But I don't think Simon will be difficult.
Well, the thing that we need to do, I feel, is make a list of what we want to do and then go to Swale with it. Because at the moment, Swale Council doesn't seem to have anything written down, have they, that they wanted to do, apart from, was it I've got it in my book.
Cilla, don't embarrass them. The
No, not. They wanted us. They. Does anybody know Cinderella Estate?
Yes, yes, and Cinderella was a fairly major house
Yes.
with quite a big. It's just outside. It's on the Sittingbourne side of Faversham,
Yeah.
and it was a fairly major house with a fairly major garden, and
Yes.
it could be interesting. It could
Yeah.
be interesting.
No hotel, I believe.
It's now a hotel. Yeah.
Yeah. That was the only private one that Simon gave us.
It's
when
perhaps
we
worth
first
explaining why he would know about that one. It's because it's been at the there's been a lot of issues in conservation landscape
Okay.
terms about that one, which is why it's on his list. So Simon is relatively new to the borough, and he'll largely be aware of ones where there's been a planning issue.
Yeah.
And that will explain the nature of the list he's given you, I think. I don't think he'll be at all difficult, and we're about to do with him a project looking at the heritage assets which are not Heritage England listed. So if you like, locally significant heritage assets, and obviously some of the gardens we would have wanted to include in those anyway.
Yeah. So that could be a joint.
So there's a nice
effort.
overlap in a way.
Yeah, because if you give him that list, he's going to give the list back to us. So,
Yes. Yeah.
so we can work together on that.
That's what I think
we
would
should
be
working
sensible.
together on this.
Because from his point of view, the gardens are just an extension of that. I mean, he's trying to get a list together of all the local heritage, and the gardens are a part of it.
Yeah. And I think he's really given us the remit to do it, hasn't
Yeah,
he?
absolutely. I don't think it'll be difficult at all, Cilla.
No, I'm not. I know Simon because we've been working with him. I'm sure it will be fine.
He won't be.
He's very busy though.
Yes, he is. Which is partly why it won't be difficult.
Provided you can contact him.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but you just send him an email, it's done, isn't it?
Well, we
Maybe.
won't go into that. So I have got a bit of the list out of tonight. How should we go forward, Lucy? Because you seem to have a lot of information.
Well, Cilla, I think maybe have I got your email address? I think I
Yes.
have got your yes, I have got your email address because it's been shared. Why don't we email each other
Yes.
and move forward? I can jot down what I think the sort of appropriate gardens might be, but my list is certainly not completely comprehensive. There are 2 or 3 private gardens that might be significant in the area. It's not immediately in the centre of Faversham, which doesn't matter. You're talking about Swale, so that could be interesting, which I will also mention.
Simon,
I mean, there is the Kingstown Garden, which is half in Swale and half in somewhere else. Up at
Torry Hill.
Yes, it's half. Some of it's in Swale and some of it's in some other borough, which is nameless to me, but maybe other people would know, which Maidstone, perhaps.
Maidstone.
Yeah, I think it is Maidstone.
Maidstone. Mm.
Oh, well then is it?
Lucy, I don't know if you know anything about the gardens attached to the two medieval houses which are up on the top next door to BMM Weston. I've never been to either grounds, but they're both significant hall houses and probably did have gardens, but I don't know anything about them in any kind of detail. Do you know the two?
No. Well, I know where you mean. That one is a sort of a Georgian house, and one is and the other one I haven't been to. I have been in the garden of the Georgian house. I don't know anything about it. Funnily enough, the other place I was thinking of is on the other side of the hill, Davington Hill, from that, opposite Davington Priory, which was called Gate, which was a house, an existing wall still there. Old Gate Place, it's called, and there certainly would have been a magnificent garden there, completely built over now.
But the gate survives and would be worth trying.
The wall is the gate is sort of still there. The wall is there, but actually the Faversham Society does have a lot of records of the old of old properties in Faversham, and that's where I found out the information about St Anne's, which I thought was really interesting because it was a sort of pleasure garden in the past. So I'm just racking my brains to think of other places. But as I say, the Faversham, there is information out there already on the internet about. So
if I go to the Faversham Society website, the Faversham Society website would have all these.
I would have thought that would help you.
I wouldn't go to the website. I think, Cilla, if you write to me saying exactly what you want, I will send it on to the people in the society who know what's in our records. I'm very happy to do that.
So who's in charge of the Faversham Society? Who is the person who is
I don't know that there's anybody in charge of it, Cilla, but I'm the chair.
You're the chair.
I don't think anybody is in charge of the Faversham Society. That's beyond my wildest dreams. But I do know who to send your request to.
And where is everything stored then? Where is it all kept?
In our various rooms in Preston Street. We have a building with 34 rooms in it.
Okay.
It's not okay at all, Cilla. I mean, it's a nightmare. But we do have a lot of records, and we know a lot of where the other records are.
Okay.
The other one, Lucy, just because it suddenly occurred to me, is there anything at Macknade Farmhouse, the Reed's restaurant? I've never looked at the garden there, but presumably that must be a historic garden around that magnificent Georgian house.
It might be. I don't know. I don't know about its history. It was a farmhouse.
It was definitely a Georgian manor house. I'd be surprised, therefore, if there aren't historic gardens. It's worth just checking it before we. Because that's the kind of place that could become a planning issue in the future, I fear.
Yeah. If I could just mention, Simon, you just mentioned Kingsdown, Torry Hill. Well, Lady Kingsdown's president of the Kent Garden Trust. So there's a strong connection there. So maybe it's a garden we could research for the president of the Kent's Gardens Trust.
Rose will have all the information about her garden. She knows, she'll know a lot about it and when it was created.
We're just being joined by Fern Alder, who I've just noticed was in the.
Oh, well done, Fern.
Hello.
Hello, Fern. It's nice to have you back in Faversham.
Virtually, you could say. Nice to see you.
Good to have you
so
back.
Sorry.
Put your video on, Fern.
Where is it? Oh.
Bottom left. Bottom left of the screen, Fern.
Oh yeah.
Well done.
Is that it? Hello.
Hello.
We're missing you already, Fern.
Yes, we do.
Well, I'm missing a tree walk I've heard about.
You are. Best tree walk in Britain. You're missing it. What can I say?
Well, I'm very glad it's happening. Well done, everyone.
Everyone in your absence, Fern.
Well, I actually had popped back to Faversham a couple of weekends ago and found myself street planting almost immediately because Griselda was attempting to plant outside her house. And I said, oh, let me help you with that. So I ended up street planting in Faversham. I haven't quite gone yet, so you haven't completely got rid of me.
So we weren't trying to get rid of you, you fled.
No,
so let's come back to your agenda. Sorry, we're just so pleased to see Fern again. We've been a bit distracted.
Now, why I was asking about your society was how, if you want to access the information that you have, you go through you, Harold, basically.
So what I would do is just
there isn't somebody who's looks after.
I'll put you in touch with the right people.
Okay.
With a strong suggestion for me that they give you some degree of priority, because we do have quite a long backlist.
Okay.
We don't have enough volunteers to keep up with the quantity of applications that we get for information.
Okay.
So that's, and then I'll just put you directly in touch with them, and please then just deal with them rather than with me.
Okay.
I only want to make the introduction, Cilla. I don't want to own this at all.
No. I just need to know the process.
No, I'll set you up
otherwise-
with the right contact, and then you take the
Yeah.
process from there.
So that when we get a list, one of the first port of call will be the Faversham Society to see what you have.
Yeah, of course.
Before we go off to Maidstone and everywhere else, you know, the local authority and everything.
What we might have that others don't have to quite the same extent that we do is a really remarkable map collection.
Okay, that's
Some of which will be really useful in terms of working out where the gardens were and what they used to look like.
Yeah. So
that is, I say, is one of our great strengths. The rest is pretty much just whatever we've happened to be given, I guess. But the map collection is pretty thoroughly collected.
That will be amazing. Yeah.
Well,
Brilliant.
it should be helpful at least.
Yeah, no, but it's a starting point. A good map is always a good starting point when we're starting our research. So that would be great. So is there any questions that anybody wants to ask Mike and myself about the Kent Gardens Trust, or about the research that we're doing?
I suppose I have one, Cilla, if I may. I think as the research comes along, when you're ready, it would be really nice to have maybe just some short talks from you about, or from you and Mike and our own local volunteers, if there are some, about the places you've discovered and what you have to say about them.
Oh, definitely.
I'd really welcome that in terms of getting a larger audience for the output of the research, because often one of the problems is you do an awful lot of research and then it just goes into a report somewhere. It'd be really nice to give it some life and some photographs and maybe a bit of video film of the presentation so that people can appreciate it.
Yes, definitely. We need to have it more outside too, so that more people can see.
I just think it's something we can work on together.
Yes. Simon, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, in Tunbridge Wells, for instance, all the reports are on the Tunbridge Wells Borough website. If you find your way through to the right place, you can look at all the reports, and indeed they get amended from time to time because people find out new information about a garden that's been researched, and there's a method of getting them updated, so that the Swale should be encouraged to put your report on their website somehow, for where it will be available to everybody as well.
I certainly hope, Cilla, that you'd look at us putting them up on the Faversham Society website as well.
Oh, definitely. I mean, that would be possible, wouldn't it, Mike?
Yes, no problem at all.
As long as we've got the private owner's consent,
yes,
we can do that. I mean, if you look at the Kent Gardens Trust website, go to what we do and then go to research, it's all there for you to see what we've already done. So it will be a guideline for if anybody's interested in helping with the research, you can actually see how we go about it. We have an editor, so we send everything off to an editor. So she makes sure that it's usually in the same, everything's in the same format. And Paul Cummings from Kent County Council sends us quite a lot of maps and details. So he's very helpful as well. So it's quite a good team, I think, don't you, Mike?
Well, let's hope that we can contribute to it, Cilla.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there anything more that you want to say, either you or Mike?
Mike, I think we've got the message over, haven't we?
I think you've done first-class job.
And you're talking to people in Sittingbourne, aren't you, as well?
Yes, I've talked to, oh dear, I'm hopeless on names. I've forgotten Gemma's name.
Richard, is it Richard Emmett?
Yeah.
Or?
Richard Emmett is the one person you can't afford to miss in Sittingbourne.
Yes, hopefully he's put a note about us in their weekly e-newsletter that comes out each month.
Yeah.
And does anybody know anybody else in Swale who would be useful? to contact?
Well, I think Amelia Oldfield would, you know, I can contact her and see if I can get her in on the, you know, she knows a lot about the,
She
you know, the
actually
local history and gardens.
She was actually interested in joining the research group. She emailed me. So, and I hope I might see her quite shortly as well. So I think she's interested, isn't she?
Good.
Yeah, yeah.
I think she'd be valuable.
Yeah, good. Thank you. Yeah.
I think probably the big gap, Cilla, is Sheppey, but I don't think I can help you with that.
Does anybody know Sherland Hall?
Yes. Yeah. Well, I know of it. It's beautiful. It's a Tudor.
Yeah.
It's a Tudor manor house.
And it's been recently restored, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. Yes. And what's it called? Spitalfields Trust.
Yeah.
Wasn't it, Fern? Was it Spitalfields?
Spitalfield Historical Building Trust.
Yes.
I think that's who restored it about 15 years ago.
Yes. And it's about 7 acres, is it?
Yes.
That, I think that's quite a possibility.
Something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And whoever is running that garden is probably your best
again,
bet
as far as I know, it's privately owned.
But that person will almost certainly know what else is happening on Sheppey.
Yeah. Okay, we've got to get everything together then.
So could I just make one last request of you and Mike? Yeah. If you could let me have 100 words to put with this video on our website, as you want to describe what you're looking for, with one of your contact details, just so that anybody who does see it on our website, and we'll obviously put it into our next newsletter, knows where to go for further information.
Sure. Yeah, definitely.
To connect with you.
Yeah, yeah, because I didn't do a PowerPoint because I thought this session would be
death by PowerPoint, awful. Good decision.
Yeah. So yes, we'll do that, won't we, Mike? I can do 100 words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, 150 if you need it, but you know, whatever you need to communicate. Yeah, our next deadline is the 15th of November, so you've got time.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you very much for inviting us to this event.
Well, if I could say thank you, I think it's been really useful for the few people who've heard it tonight. But as I say, it will be permanent on our site for at least 2 years, and we'll promote it through the newsletter. Yeah. I'm sure more people will come and watch it online.
Yeah, great. And so I'll do this. People know my email address anyway, because I'm on this talk.
Yes.
So they can get in touch with me.
Are you happy though for it to go into the public domain on the website, or would you rather they contact you through the trust? Think about it when you send me the 100 words. Just decide between you how you want to be contacted.
Yeah, or they could contact the Kent Gardens Trust, couldn't they?
Well, exactly. I think you put into that piece whatever you want to be the point of contact. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's your decision.
Yeah.
Well, look, can I just end this by saying thank you very much? I've really enjoyed that, far more than I thought I would, actually. So thank you.
And I'll be in touch, Lucy.
Yes, thank you, Cilla. Yes.
Yeah, great. We have to get together. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Can I just apologise for my sudden intervention? I had left it running for quite a while, and I thought you were just chatting amongst yourselves.
Okay. Well, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Wherever you are.
When are you next in Faversham, Fern?
I don't know, Harold.
That was the wrong answer. I was hoping you'd be here next week, but never mind. Wow. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Okay. It was very nice to see you all. And I'm very sorry I was so late and intervened so suddenly.
Don't worry, it's good to see you, Fern.
All right. All the
Thanks,
best.
everybody.
Okay,
bye.
bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.